Back to us. Obviously, again, we don't have this report yet, but just from my perspective, I know we have this gap, we have this negative balance once you remove grants, and I believe that's perpetuated by our $1.3 billion asset base that we struggle to maintain. Can you give me some commentary around us and what I can see there?
Yeah, so what you're referring to, that gap, is what's on, well, more commonly referred to as a profit loss statement or an income statement. And so that's not cash. So the really important point to make is that the income statement is not a cash position. It's an accounting, what's called an accrual accounting position. So you've got things on there like depreciation, which is not a cash expense. So it can be that councils can have a deficit in their operating statement, yet accumulate cash because they haven't spent the cash on the assets, right? Yeah. So it's a little bit difficult because the financial assistance grants that has come to local government has been prepaid by the federal government inconsistently over the 5 years. Sometimes they've paid you 50% prepayment, 75% prepayment. It's a little bit all over the place. So it's made that income statement quite difficult to explain. And some of the accountants will sometimes struggle with it too. So it's important, and that's why it's important we talk about cash. And so when in that situation where the government has prepaid you, we would strongly suggest you put that in a reserve, spend that money when you need to spend that money in the next year. Tuck it away for that year. So what's called, it's a net operating result, which shows up as a deficit. What that generally is considered unsustainable, because what that means is you can't fund the depreciation, can't fully cash back that depreciation expense. And if that happens over a long term, well, then you're not going to be spending, you haven't got enough cash to spend on the assets at the same rate that you're consuming the assets. So that will end in a deterioration of your assets at some point.
Okay, so I guess what everyone likes to criticise and say is, this council, it's broke, they're broke, councils are broke. So to put it to bed, we're not broke.
No, you're not broke.
Can you just initially looking over our financials and having a look at just our publicly available documents, what story does it tell us?
Yeah, so if you have a look into some of the financial statements of the past, there are some indicators. So although you've got a lot of cash, so you're not broke, let's put that aside, right?
Okay.
Like you've got a lot of cash, but that cash needs to be planned and spent in future. So you've got over almost $500 million in capital works over the next 10 years to spend. Your water and sewer funds have got nearly $1 billion over the next 30 years to be spent on your water and sewer. So it's really important that future planning is done correctly and that money is tucked away for what's needed. So from looking at your financial statements projecting forward, Mr. Mayor, we do think there is a structural deficit for your council. Yeah, it's about $6 to $7 million that needs to be corrected. That means that the cash that you're short each year to tuck away for future and also to fund those assets, it's about $6 to $7 million structural problem is what is my words for it. So that needs to be fixed, and that needs to be fixed in a recurrent sense. So it's not just a one-off fix. Just deferring a capital projects is not going to fix that. So those two levers, revenue and expenditures, expenditure needs to be adjusted to fix the problem of a quantum of about $6 to $7 million.
Okay, and essentially what that boils down to is back to my original blunt sort of statement was cut things and find revenue or raise rates to a certain degree. And I guess, and that sort of lands us at the crux of your report. So ultimately your report will be recommending or saying something along the lines of, you're overspending here, you shouldn't even be doing this, and we see a gap here that could be filled with X amount percentage a year above a rate peg. Am I reading that right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a good summation. So we've gone through your services and looked at the importance of those services. We've looked at how effective you are at providing those services. So the difficulty the councillors will have is once we've done that piece of work, is that we'll identify services that you're actually not effective. You're not meeting the expectations of those services now. So do you want to lower those expectations on the service, or do you may need to pump some more money into those services to bring them up to expectation? Yep. And one of those is actually really important is your maintenance. Yeah. So one of the issues you've got, you pull back on maintenance, then you cause yourself problems because you're having to replace assets even earlier than you need to now. Mm-hmm. So that's a really important balance to get, is to make sure you spend enough on maintenance so you stretch your assets out to optimize the life of those assets. And part of the problem we have identified, and we've looked at the grading program, we've looked at different maintenance programs, is there is some areas that do need to be resourced more. So, you might have a look at trying to pull back on the expenditure. That one's going to be a bit difficult, and it'll be a difficult discussion to have amongst the budget build for next financial year, in when you have a look at those services, because some of them do have not just like they have some cost pressures on those budgets as they are.
Okay. And then I guess in just your personal view, you've done this many times. When do you see this as a successful conversation, and when do you see it as a hard one? Like, have you got some ideas around what's the best way to approach these things with community and how we
Yeah, so I think it's, no one likes a rate rise. Councils don't like rate rise. Community doesn't like a rate rise. But it's important to engage the community with that. And where there is true a point of deliberation, that's where you need to involve the community to help you make that decision. Does the community want to maintain the current services, or would they accept a reduction in the services for lower rate? That's a deliberation. And you've got a very diverse community too, so that makes it difficult. But I think that the difficulty is that nobody likes a rate rise. But I think the reality is you can't make a $6 to $7 million correction without somewhat of a rate rise. $6 to $7 million correction is too much to get just through efficiencies or pulling back services.
And I guess probably the final and ultimate question: what happens when councils do nothing? Like, lead me through to the very end of what happened.
Yeah, so, the administrator comes in ultimately if the state government makes a decision that you're failing your responsibilities. So councils have a responsibility to manage the finances sustainably, not just for current but future generations. So ultimately they will step in with an administrator at some point if a council fails in its duties that are outlined in the Local Government Act to manage things efficiently, effectively, and for the best interest of all generations. So that's where it ultimately ends up. The local government is a creature of the state, so the state has to, as a guarantor of the local government, step in if it looks like it's failing, and that's what happens from time to time. But you're not broke, and you're not in a position that you should be worrying about that. It's fully within the council's hands at the moment to make some decisions going forward. There's some really tough decisions to be made around assets. You've got some large bits of equipment out there that are, if not already failed, they're near the end of life. And so you need to make some tough decisions around those assets. They're going to be costly. You haven't got a lot of cash to draw on that's unrestricted to deal with those. So you are facing the reality of whether you rely on grant funding or take that on yourselves. If you're going to take it on, there will need to be a rate rise of that quantum of $6 to $7 million if those savings efficiencies don't generate any more cash.
Okay, so we need to get to work and start listening to advice and planning, and that's all in train now.
Yeah, but the fortunate good, I guess there's no sort of good news out of it, but the important thing here is you're not in a really bad position of what we have seen for other councils. You are very well aware of it. Before we got on board, Jesse, the council took on under your own bat to put a financial sustainability strategy together before we'd even got into your front door. So you've taken the right steps, and I think the council should be commended for taking those initial steps.
Oh, thank you. Look, I think we've covered most bases. I really appreciate it. I know it's not the normal thing to do, but it does help, help me understand it and help the community. So thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Jesse.
Cheers.